You got Mac, John McMullen and Jody McDonald on a tough morning here on Birds 365 after the Eagles choke one up against the Arizona Cardinals. Jeff Kerr, good enough to get up early. Good thing that he didn't have 22 drinks last night. If he did, I wouldn't blame him after that Eagle effort yesterday. Mr. Kerr, thank you very much for getting up. Happy New Year. How unhappy is it from a Philadelphia Eagle perspective?
Well, just walking in that locker room, John and I went to go see Jonathan Gannon yesterday, and after he talked, we go in that locker room. I didn't even know anybody was in there. It was dead. The players that did talk didn't say much, and the ones that did probably said stuff that shouldn't have been said. But I still say the most telling thing out of all of this, and I've been downplaying it because of what he said to us. What was it, John? Now about, I guess, 11 days ago, the last time A.J. Brown talked. But him being silent right now as a team captain is a really big deal.
Yeah, Mike Sealski our buddy did a good column on AJ's, had some previous issues when he was in Tennessee, dealing with social media, some mental health issues, which we've seen with Lane Johnson and locally and Brandon Brooks. And he did mention yesterday it has nothing to do with you guys, meaning the reporters. So I'm willing to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because I've talked to him so much over the past 2 years, and he's typically very open. I think he's struggling with some things. You were there when I asked him about that dust up he had on social media. In fact, you got the video of it. Thank you. Hat tip to Jeff Kerr. And, he apologized for it, but you could see it was weighing on his mind because he was ready, and it was a very involved and very long answer. I think he's struggling with some things. And I've always said, I had a bad week on social media last week with people attacking me. I get it from a player's perspective. They get it a million times worse, a million times worse. And sometimes it wears on them. I think that's what's going on with AJ. I'm not 100%, obviously, but he did say, I talked to guys who were there because as you mentioned, I was talking to Gannon. You were there with Gannon. Then I was talking with Sirianni. So I missed AJ, but he did say at the end, it's not about you guys, meaning the reporters. So I think he's going through some things, and, I'll give him a wide berth at that stage. And we'll see how it develops. I don't think it's as big as a deal as some are making it out to be, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I just think it's a bigger deal because of his status on the team. He's a mentor to Devonta Smith. He's a team captain, and look, I could care less if the guy talks or not, but I feel like the guy. And look, this isn't just A.J. Brown. This is all the leaders. I think they need to kind of step to the plate. I'm not questioning any of Jalen's leadership, Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox. They've talked. We've heard them talk, but something's going on, and you're hearing it from other guys in that locker room that bits and pieces are coming together. And, I mean, on the field stuff, I do think A.J. Brown's frustrated with how the offense is going. But you're right. Yeah, you're right, John. Yeah. Off the field, that's completely different.
I think everybody's frustrated with the way the offense is going. To me, it comes down to, the onside kick, which Jonathan Gannon deemed a success, even though it wasn't a success, but it was really a success. He didn't want the Eagles to bleed out the game. He had mentioned, I trust my guys on defense. No, he doesn't. He knows they weren't going to be able to get off the field. So he put them in a position where if the Eagles scored, maybe you can come down, score a touchdown, try to steal the game with a 2-point conversion. Turns out they did better. They held them to a field goal. Because Jordan Mailata got a holding penalty. Okay, it happens. And then they just went ultra conservative. 2 quarterback sweeps in a row, and then a bubble screen to Kenny Gainwell where Devonta Smith gets hurt. And we saw him on crutches. in a walking boot because he was blocking. The playmaker was blocking for the role player with that damn bubble screen. And boy, if that costs you DeMonte Smith for the playoffs, there's not a worse sequence of the Philadelphia Eagles season than that sequence, Jeff.
I agree. So I even tweeted during that third. I'm like, I guess that's a bubble screen that Kenny Gainwell. I don't know anymore, and it's hard to defend any of these guys, any of these coaches right now, just by player reaction, by what they're doing. Like you said, John, 3rd and 20. I just don't know anymore. Like I am really getting to the point where it's, can you bring any of these coaches back?
Ooh, are we going that far? Wow.
I don't want to go that far, but it's starting to. How do you get to the? I think you're getting to the point of no return, and you're not getting your return of investment for what I feel top end wise. This is a talented team, but the depth certainly isn't there. And yeah, you can reset, but if you're already tired of the message Nick is sending together, are you kidding me? That's what you're giving me right now. We got to stick together. I'm sorry, as I wouldn't be buying that.
Here's where I'll go. How far I'll go with you, Jeff Kerr. The chance that Nick Sirianni gets fired at the end of this year is not zero. At the beginning of this season, if you said, could Sirianni be fired at the end of this year? I would have given you a 0. There's no chance. He just took the team to Super Bowl. What are you talking about? No chance. As we sit here today, it's not a 0. I still think it's a small percentage.
That's how I am.
Less than 10, but it's not 0. And that says something. And I think that kind of puts him on a bit of a clock this week. That big part of this Eagle underachieving is that they don't look like they're playing motivated. They don't look like they're playing that it hurts when they lose, that they're 100% focused. Now, I'm going to put some of it on the quarterback and Kelsey and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and the veteran leaders, Lane Johnson of this team. But more than anybody else, this falls on Sirianni. He's the coach. He's the one who continues to say, get off Brian Johnson's back. It's my offense. Oh, okay, your offense called those 3 horrific plays that John just laid out there for you when you're trying to put the game away. He needs to show that this is his team. If he truly wants to take command of it, he's got to do it this week into the playoff game. What's your confidence level that Sirianni can make this team look like the Philadelphia Eagles and the talent level they had more to that level?
I would probably go a 5 right now.
Yeesh, Jesus.
Yeah, that ain't good. And a month ago I would say, he'll get him back. No worries. 8 or 9. They have Jalen Hurts. They have AJ Brown. They got the leaders on this team, but it's clear you can't beat the Seattle Seahawks. And again, the Seattle Seahawks are 8-8, but you can't beat them. You can't beat the stinking Arizona Cardinals. They're 3-13. This is the 26th ranked offense, and you let them gash you for 31 first downs. They couldn't score 29 points in the whole game this year, and they scored 29 in the second half. 6 of 7 possessions, not counting the half. They scored. I don't have any confidence in this football team right now. It's honestly incredible. And the only reason I think they're going to win next week is because I think the Giants are god awful. And look, the Cardinals are god, but the Eagles seem to have the Giants.
The Cardinals are god awful too coming into the game.
Yeah. I said that as well, but now I can't say anybody. I mean, the Cardinals.
Yeah, the Eagles are god awful. It's our buddy Andrew DeCecco and I were talking about this yesterday. John, like, who has the worst? Not who's the worst team. Who has the worst roster in the NFL? And him and I pondered for like maybe a minute or two, and we're like, it's got to be the Cardinals, right? Yeah.
I think Cardinals with the injuries, maybe Carolina, but they're right there. They're right there. It was embarrassing. And you talk about the defense. I mean, you mentioned something. I hear it from a lot of people. There's so much talent on this team. I'm not going to argue offensively. Defensively, I'm going to start arguing.
Oh, I agree
as
with
you mentioned, 100%. As you mentioned, was actually 32 first down.
All right, I'm going to jump in and argue right here, right now. The vaunted defensive line, which we were led to believe was not only good starting 4, but with Brandon Graham as 5 deep, Slay and Bradbury. That's the way the Eagles line most of the time, that's basically 7 guys out of 11 because they're usually in a 5-man defensive front and 2 quarterbacks. That's 7 of 11, and it's supposed to be well above average, John. This was the unit, the Eagles defensive line, the best unit in all of football. So if you're going to say, well, they don't have that much talent, no. They passed on improving linebacker, and they took a shot at safety. Yeah, they paid a price for both of those. But I can't go, they're not that talented in defense. They're supposed to be a tremendously talented defense.
But
for
do
more
they have
than
the
half
depth?
of their starters.
But
Yeah,
do they
well,
have
the team they're rolling out now is Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff. I mean, they're not playing with Slade right now. They got Avonte Maddox back, but by the way, he's hurt again. Where I saw him walking to the X-ray room.
No, Avonte got hurt
We'll
again.
see.
Yeah,
He was walking to the X-ray room, and he was holding his
when we
left
got out
arm.
of JG's thing, he was holding it.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
saw. I'm trying to think of this for a second. So the Eagles kept Bradley Roby inactive yesterday.
Yeah.
He was a healthy scratch. Did it ever occur to this team that Avonte Maddox, who perpetually gets hurt, may get hurt again?
It should have in hindsight, But one of the issues I'll say with the defense, I am sick and tired of all these looks. I want to go the exact opposite way. Look, you're struggling. Like, I don't want to see Matt Patricia's throwing the kitchen sink with these looks. We got dime looks with Nolan Smith at Mike linebacker. We got big nickel with 3 safeties.
Yeah, isn't that anti-Fangio? Shouldn't you be excited by that? They're trying to get away from Fangio by giving these different looks.
Well, it's a little bit different than Fangio, yes.
What about the personnel?
The personnel.
That's
my point is, they're swapping out Ringo and Ricks. Look, your Slay is not playing. Everybody's got to deal with injuries. My point is, just play who your best player is. Who is your best player right now at that particular position? Play that guy. At this stage, what you're doing, I said it with Desai. I liked it a little bit. I liked it with Patricia a little bit. It ain't working. Whomever your best player is, put him there, play him there, and get some damn continuity. And I'm not saying it's going to be great because they don't have great talent on the back end, especially. And hopefully Slay will get back, but it ain't going to be at MetLife Stadium, not on that turf. So forget about it this week. Hopefully he'll be back for the playoffs. Ringo should be out there. Bang. If Maddox is healthy, Maddox should be the slot corner. I don't need to see Sidney Brown in the slot corner.
Yeah.
If Blankenship is healthy and Barrett, they're the safeties. If Morrow's healthy and Zach Cunningham's back, they're the linebacker. That's it. That's it.
But then let me ask both of you two guys, your evaluations. Should Kevin Byard be on the field these days? What has he done since he got here? He got the 1 pick that was basically thrown right to him. Good catch. I guess you got to give him that much. But he doesn't make any plays. He was part of the missed tackle brigade on a couple of long Connor runs yesterday. I know the Eagles gave up something for him, so they're going to give him. So has he not gotten enough rope to prove that, he not only is he not what he used to be, he's not even good enough to be starting in this league right now?
I would place. Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
So, the way Sidney Brown's been playing, I think you have a legitimate argument to play him over Kevin Byard. The problem is, I don't know who should be the 2 safeties. Like, is it Reed and Sidney? Is it Sidney and Reed? Is it Kevin and Sidney? I don't know. And that's my issue with the safety position right now. They really did have a void when Justin Evans went down for the season because he was like,
that's amazing.
It is.
Who thought that was going to be the case?
That's amazing.
I just don't know anymore. And to your point on Kevin Byard, I'm with you, Jody. I know they gave up something for him. I know they're paying him some money. He just hasn't done anything.
Nope.
I don't know what to say. And I know he's been frustrated with how things are going. I don't know if it's because of the system or the scheme or it's a when Desai was there, it was confusing. I don't know, but it just seems like this is a player that deteriorated.
Yeah, he's not nearly the player he once was. I think that's fair to say. But, I think he's their best option right now. He doesn't make a
Yeah.
lot of splash plays, but, for all this, and we saw the biggest splash play of the year from Sidney Brown, right? I mean, and next gen stats clocked him at 21.52 miles per
Oh,
hour.
he was booking it.
He went 123 yards traversing the field for a pick six. Obviously, that's going to stand out to people. How many tackles has Sidney Brown missed over the past few weeks? I mean,
At
he
least
makes a lot of mistakes. I think long term, no question, Sidney's your guy. Short term, I need a guy who's not going to make mistakes, and that's less mistakes, and that's going to be Byard. So I'm going to ride it out for the season with Kevin Byard. Disappointed, but yeah, next year's Sidney. And we'll see how he develops. But right now, he makes too many mistakes. And that's what I'm saying. They've seen plenty of them. With Jody's argument with Jacoby Dean, which I think is a valid one, Eagles should have gotten a look at. They've gotten plenty of looks at Sidney Brown.
That's true.
Now they can
but
sit
too
back.
many of them become a slot corner, John.
Well, that's
They're
true.
trying to force feed him into a position he's not capable of playing.
That's what I don't like. And Sidney will give you the professional answer on and off the record about playing slot corner. But
Yeah,
in my personal opinion, he should not be there.
No. And he was there yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
He was only playing safety on the pick six because Reed got banged up for a couple plays, and he was in there. And by the way, you want to talk about Byard's interception. Guess what? He was playing center field. The receiver ran the wrong route. Kyler threw it up. He was playing center field. Now, after that, it was phenomenal, the return.
Yep.
But the interception was a gift.
Special. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you got to be fair from that perspective as well. I got a lot of confidence in Sidney Brown long term, but he's still learning. And right now they have a guy who's probably going to make less mistakes, not going to be as splashy. But
then let me ask both of you guys again. Jeff, you first. John, you second. If that's the case, next year, opening week, Philadelphia Eagles starting safety Sidney Brown and Reed Blankenship. Everybody gonna be okay with that?
No,
they won't address it during the offseason. If John's telling me Sidney Brown has shown enough that he's going to be a starting safety, and oh, by the way, last year certainly, and this year, amazingly, when they're all healthy, their safeties play 100% of the plays. That's not a situational substitution position for the Philadelphia Eagles. You're the starter. You stay healthy. You play all 100% of the plays. Are we okay with Sidney Brown and Reed Blankenship as their two starting safeties next year?
I mean, I'd be okay just based on roster construction, but you got to remember, you're going to have a lot more freed up cap because Kevin Byard, in this scenario, Kevin Byard ain't coming back. That's a big cap hit. Brandon Graham, say Jason Kelsey don't come back because he retires. There's going to be a bunch of other guys in there. So maybe you have maybe Darius Slay ain't back. James Bradbury ain't back. Okay. There's some more. So
yeah, there's going to be changeover.
Yeah. That's a lot of change, but you're going to have to add talent in the back end and they just don't have it right now. So if that's where they go, fine. But I don't know. There's going to be some intriguing safeties on the free agent market that I'm at least looking at to help those two out.
By the way, going further down that route, I don't think a lot of people, because of the enormity of the loss and the collapse, that might have been the last home game for Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. That might have been their last game at Lincoln Financial Field.
Blowing a 12.5 point favorite, a 15-point lead at halftime, John McMullen. The biggest blown halftime lead for this franchise since 2011. 49ers.
If you're a fan of those three guys and you want to see any or all of them back, it might be the best argument to have them come back. Can't get out on that note. Can't leave Philadelphia getting upstaged by Jonathan Gannon with his lowly Cardinals. That's a good argument to make as to you guys can't walk out the door.
Jonathan Gannon has his team playing harder than Nick Sirianni, right? And his team.
Right? I think that's true, and it's sad.
The defense yesterday, 32 first downs, is second most allowed by any team this season against the Arizona Cardinals. 7 possessions, 4 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and the Sidney Brown pick 6, which would have been probably a field goal if they didn't have the miscommunication. At least, they didn't punt. Don't even know who the Cardinals punter is today.
I knew their punt returner was.
Yeah. I mean, panic is the only way I can describe the move from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia. And we're seeing there's no evidence of improvement. Arguably, it's gotten worse. The coaching versus personnel perspective, because fans tend to always want to protect the players. I want to rip them both, but who am I going to rip more? I give the players more credit when they win. I'm going to give the players more credit when they lose. I think it's personnel more than coaching. You seem to think it's coaching more than personnel because you don't want any coaches back. So I want to talk about coaching. You said 10%, Jody, 10% or less.
Less than 10.
I agree with you. I'm not going to put 100%. I want your thoughts on this, Jeff, about Nick Sirianni being back. If they're one and done in the playoffs, say they're one and done.
Oh, by the way, there's a game between the playoffs and today, which they could lose next week.
My overreaction piece this week for CBS, and this is doing the whole league, just look at that, quick highlights of some of the games, looking at just results. It's a results-based thing. But the game I was at, I put it. Eagles are one and done in the playoffs. Their reaction or reality. And I put reality just based on the locker room, based on what's going on. And, oh, by the way, if it's Tampa, I think they are one and done. I said this. If it's New Orleans, I don't like Dennis Allen. So, but they could lose to them.
Yeah, Dennis Allen beat Tampa yesterday. Got to give him credit.
I do, but the NFC South stinks. But then again, the Eagles are worse than the NFC South right now. I'm not even sure they can beat the Panthers.
Here's my problem, and we saw it with Doug Peterson. What's going to happen in that scenario, and that's if you lose and you're one and done, which I don't think they will be, by the way. I still think they have enough to beat any of those teams, Tampa, New Orleans. Then I think they're in trouble. And then it becomes more of a contextual thing. But if they fall apart and they lose, doesn't even matter if they lose to the Giants, but if they lose to the Giants, lose to Tampa Bay, lose to New Orleans, whomever is there, what's going to happen is Howie's going to demand, and really not even Howie, I shouldn't blame Howie. Jeffrey's going to demand they gut the defensive coaching staff.
And he'll have every right to. I mean, they already kind of gutted it.
The problem is, and you saw it with Doug Peterson, Doug got attached to certain guys, didn't want to scapegoat them, was forced to scapegoat them, and that created the schism that eventually led to Doug Peterson's departure. That's the 10% or so Jody's talking about from my perspective. That's why it exists. If Nick says, you know what? I made it to the Super Bowl. I built this staff. I don't want to get rid of all these guys on the defensive side. That could start to create the issues. Are we heading down the same route we had down before?
All right. So, John, let me put it to you. And Jeff, please chime in after. We weren't doing Birds 365 yet, but I was reading you were hearing me on WIP. I was pretty surprised that the dominoes all fell as quickly as they did. I didn't think Peterson was getting fired at that time, mainly for the reason that I didn't think Peterson was going to cause the internal strife. I didn't think he was going to pull wait a minute, I won the Super Bowl card. You're not dictating to me terms on my coaching staff. It kind of came as a surprise to me that Doug went down that road. After the fact, we got all the details and found everything else. And, okay, I understand where he's coming from. We know Nick Sirianni to a point. He's never been thrown up against this wall before, so we don't know, and we don't even know if it will happen. But if it does happen, does he follow in Peterson's footsteps? And not say,
Yeah,
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'll change out my whole staff. Or does he take a stand? Or if, and he didn't win the Super Bowl. Doug won the Super Bowl. Sirianni lost the Super Bowl. Do you think it could come to those loggerheads?
I think it certainly could, but I think it comes in stages. Remember, the first stage with Doug was Mike Rowe. And Jeffrey kind of embarrassed Doug because Doug said Mike's going to be back. And Jeffrey made him do the 180 and come out. Oh no, I rethought about it. I fired. Well, he didn't want to fire Mike Rowe. That was the first stage, and that created the seed. And then when it came back after the bad season, and Jeffrey basically said, "All right, what's your plan for the coaching staff?" And Doug's plan was Press Taylor was going to be the offensive coordinator, and either Matt Burke or Corey Unlin was going to be the defensive coordinator. And Jeffrey said, "No, you can't do that. We got to go in a different direction." And Doug said, "You know, if not a literal bleep you, a figurative bleep you. No, I'm not doing that." And Jeffrey did what he felt he had to do. So I think it's a stage thing. I think this is the first stage.
Do you think the first seed was planted when Nick said about Desai basically sticks up for him, and then the next time he speaks, Matt Patricia is the senior defensive play caller, whatever the heck.
It could be, but everything I've gotten is that was Nick's decision to the point where, you know, Nick's absurd with the competitive advantage stuff. And yeah, he lied to us. I don't know any other word. I do think that was Nick's decision. And by the way, I don't think he cares about the defensive staff. So I don't think it's going to be a Peterson situation. If they say you got to fire DJ Elliott, you got to fire DK McDonald. Maybe DK because he's been with them a little bit longer. Maybe, but I don't get the feeling like Kevin Patullo's his guy. You know, that's his guy.
Yeah, that's his offense. Like Brian Johnson. That's why I keep saying they're not going to get rid of Brian Johnson. No matter how much you want to spin it, they're not going to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason. But hold on. Time out, Philadelphia. What if Jeffrey Lurie really doesn't like Brian Johnson and thinks that the play calling has been crap this year? And no matter how much Nick says it's his offense, we know that Johnson's calling the plays. And Jeffrey Lurie thinks that was a major issue and problem with the Philadelphia Eagles. Is Nick that tight with Brian Johnson that he would go to war over him if he's the guy who Jeff decides has to be the scapegoat?
What about the guy you're paying $55 million a year to?
Oh, they're kind of married to him. Well, they were married to Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz blew up that marriage more than the Eagles did. So
yeah, I don't think Jalen's blowing it up.
I shouldn't compare the two. No, I don't think that. You think they're going to put it on Jalen more than the coaching staff? When I say they, I mean mostly Lurie, but also Howie. If there needs to be a scapegoat at the end of the season, and it's going to come more heavily on defense.
It's definitely not going to be the quarterback. I mean, Sean Payton.
That's what I'm saying. Is it going to be the play caller? Does it have a chance to be the play caller?
I mean, it has a chance, but again, as I've seen with many and again, I'm just speaking for many franchises here. I'm just going to go right down I-95 in Baltimore. When the quarterback who they're paying a lot of money to says, "Look, you seriously need to upgrade the wide receiver position," and you add Odell Beckham, you draft Save Flowers, you get he's an upgrade. I don't care what anybody says. Nelson Aguilar, he was an upgrade over what they had last year.
Better than the third wide receiver we got here in Philadelphia.
Exactly. And
hey, Julio was the bright spot, baby. 2 targets, 2 touchdowns.
They actually used Julio right yesterday. Yeah. I gotta give Johnson some credit there. But again, like I'm saying in Baltimore, what the quarterback says matters. And if Jalen Hurts says, "Look, I like Brian Johnson, that's my boy," and they are boys, what do? Are you just gonna say give the figment F you?
Yeah, I don't think the offensive staff is in trouble yet. The defensive staff, I fear for them all. I think we could have a complete turnover and this could be the second part with, someone being put in place for Nick. In other words, Howie and Jeffrey deciding who the defensive coordinator is
Like the
going to
Jim
be.
Schwartz thing?
Yes, yes. And then, um, you know, essentially have autonomy over the defensive side. And Nick might not like that. So,
But let me ask you that. Is that outrageous for them to do? Because sometimes, well, not sometimes, most times, when Jeff Lurie starts to meddle, I think it's counterproductive. Jeff's a good owner. He is willing to do whatever it takes financially to keep the team competitive. But from time to time, he puts a big footprint on football decisions on his team. Would him coming down that harsh and saying, listen, Howie and I are hiring the next defense coordinator. Sorry to tell you, Nick, but that's going to be the case. Would that be outrageous? Because Nick hired Desai, and Nick, according to John McMullen and others, decided to replace Desai and put Matt Patricia in. So his two defensive moves, coordinator moves over the past 12 months have come up loser and loser.
and by the way, he didn't even, not that he balked, but the Eagles already had Jonathan Gannon in place. They hate when I say that, but it's true. I'm sorry, Eagles. You had him in place. He was going to be the defensive coordinator, no matter who the head coach was going to be. Now, Nick had a relationship with Jonathan. It just happened to work out that way. And they worked together in Indianapolis, obviously. So everyone assumed that, he was first. He was one of the guys. He was one of the Colts guys that Nick was bringing over. He was going to be the defensive coordinator if Josh McDaniels was the head coach. The Eagles already had centered in on it.
That would have been the most intriguing dynamic if Josh McDaniels ever came.
Wow,
here
that would have failed because Josh McDaniels is a failure.
Suck.
As a
Well,
head coach.
he sucks. Let's just put it in my.
And that's an example of Jeffrey Lurie getting something right because he was recommended, hey, we should go with Josh McDaniels. And he said, you know what? No, I'm going to keep looking. And they found ultimately Nick Sirianni. But yeah, they were going to hire Jonathan Gannon, whether Nick Sirianni was here or not. So even he was kind of put in place. Now, he didn't have any issues with Gannon. I don't think he had any issues with Desai right up until he had issues with Desai, which is, it's hard not to scapegoat people in the NFL. It's unfair. It's hard. Expectations are, Brian Johnson, great quote. It's a process-driven profession, but it's judged by results. Yep. The results are what the results are, and somebody's got to pay for it. And who you scapegoat can affect the head coach.
I say that my example of that is Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has had a tremendous season with the 49ers, but people like me, he doesn't actually do well when he's trailing. You look it up, he's like one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL when his team's behind. It's a results-given league, even though a guy like that who's had a great year. And then it brings up the other question. Well, is he a product of Kyle Shanahan? Is he a product of the talent around him? And honestly, that's what makes this league fun, to be quite honest.
No, we could nitpick any quarterback in the league, including Mahomes, who everybody thinks is the most talented, when he doesn't have wide receivers. And Rice made a big play yesterday, but
and then the offensive line, he don't have that either.
Field goal after field goal after Rice, 6 field goals
Harrison
yesterday.
Butker, yes. Lamar Jackson has finally closed the MVP voting, so we can forget about that.
How about Lamar? By the way, how crazy is the AFC right now? So Buffalo loses to Miami. They could miss out on everything. They might not.
They're the team you don't want to play in the playoffs.
But they had to beat Miami first. But then again, Miami, they can't beat anybody any good. Well,
Vic Fangio giving up a 56 spot for all the Eagles fans that think he's going to come in. Oh, if we only had Vic Fangio.
Yeah, I saw Lamar put on that clinic yesterday.
Oh my Lord, I'm so tired of that.
Why is everybody trying to go the Vic Fangio route right now when it's clearly the league has adjusted to that defense?
I've been talking about Jody knows how long.
2 years.
How long I've been talking about?
At least 2 years.
Everybody catches up. Vic did a great job. He did a great job in San Francisco, did a great job in Chicago when he had Khalil Mack playing at the height of his powers and Robert Quinn getting 17 sacks and everybody else. Did a great job. I don't know if he was there with Robert, but he did a great job. And he was a great defensive coordinator, and he was ahead of the curve, but everybody catches up. They caught up to Tony Dungy. They caught up to Dan Quinn and Pete Carroll and all those guys in the cover 3, the Legion of Boom. Everybody copied that. Everybody catches up to this defense, and then you got to shift. And you got to shift to something else.
That's what so when I was talking to Tony Romo before the Super Bowl last year, we were talking about the Eagles offense, and he goes, there's like 5 or 6 different ways they can beat you right now. You're not going to stop that in a week or 2 weeks. He said, 7 months, you give me 7 months, I'll figure it out. And I really don't think the Eagles have adjusted or they've gotten worse, quite honestly.
And I know overall the Desai defense wasn't what it was supposed to be. I don't think he should have been relieved of his duties, but I get it. It wasn't. They didn't reach their expectations. The thing I liked about Desai was something that John said earlier. At least he tried stuff. He didn't just plug in the Fangio system and everybody's got the same exact responsibility as last year. At least he tried some different stuff. Didn't always work. Sometimes blew up in his face, and it might eventually cost him his gig. But at least I thought he was more inventive. Gannon just was.
He went down swinging, Jody. He
did. And I give him credit for that. Jeff Kerr, we appreciate when you come in and swing with us. Thank you very much for doing it. We'll talk to you again next Monday.
Yep. Happy New Year, boys.
Jeff
Thanks,
Kerr,
Jeff. Happy New Year.
.com. All right. John, I want to ask you one other question. We got buddy Paul Domwich, who usually joins us each and every single Friday here on Birds 365. We weren't here on Friday. The holiday weekend, we had the day off. We did our preview of the game prior to on Thursday, when both John McMullen and Jody McDonald picked the Eagles to beat the Cardinals. Oops.
I beat them to win handily.
I had them not covering. I had them winning by 9. So 2 weeks in a row, I said take the opposition plus the point.
I get stuff wrong occasionally.
Yeah,
people love that.
We both thought the Eagles were going to win, and
although didn't. I think Jody, I said the Eagles were going to be 12-5, and if they went in a different direction, your up-down game, I said they'd go down. I'm looking good on that.
You and I were both 12-5. I was got to go up to 13 rather than get down to 11. You were 12-5, and you said, yeah, if I got to move, Joe, I'd probably slide back to 11 rather than up to 13.
I'm looking good on that prediction.
Oh God, are we going to pick the game already? They should beat the Giants.
They should beat the Giants.
And they're going to be 12, which is the number that you and I both had before the season started.
So either way, I win. If I win, if they win, I got it right. I win if they lose. I said I'd go down. That's how I'd look at
it. Yeah, good math by you there. I've got one other question for you with the whole coaching staff and Sirianni's ability to judge defense from even before he was hired to where we sit right now. There's one other name I got to bring into the mix that I know you and I have discussed before, but he deserves a bit of a revisit. He may be going back to the Super Bowl again this year. The Eagles might not be, but a specific coach who was here last year with the Philadelphia Eagles could be Super Bowl bound. We'll give you the details, and I'll get a question or two for Johnny Mack. Coming up next here on Birds 365.